nous sommes tous dans un train qui se dirige vers la mort, et les uns ils lisent, les autres ils jouent aux cartes, les autres s'y frottent avec d'autres colognes, n'est-ce pas? Pour moi, dans ce train qui me mène vers la mort, je n'aime pas le stylographe et le papier. J'aime des choses qui m'occupent les mains, j'aime travailler avec mes mains.
Jean Cocteau was a poet. At least, that's how he thought of himself. He was a writer, a painter, and a filmmaker. Sometimes he was all three. Over the course of 30 years, he made less than 10 films, but each one had his handwriting, literally, all over it. He started with the Surrealists. His first film, The Blood of a Poet, is a sort of visual poem. Images and scenes are fractured into abstraction, real enough for us to feel like we can almost understand them, but always just out of reach. For me, the most striking thing about that film is how cinematically inventive it is, especially for a man who'd never worked behind a camera before. Like the early silent movies of Méliès, Cocteau played around with the medium to mess with reality, cutting from a mirror to a pool and back again.
Essaye.
Masking real lips over a painting or a hand. They even built this set to make it look like the actor was being pulled up against the wall. I mean, just look at this shot. The Blood of a Poet is an abstract film, no doubt about it. But what happens when the same filmmaker, someone who's fascinated by the experimental abilities of cinema, sets himself the task of telling a straightforward narrative? Well, you get something like Beauty and the Beast. The film opens with a plea. The director asks that we watch the movie with naivete, the same naivete children have when they're told stories about beasts and beauties, a willingness to believe in the supernatural. Movies rely on this childlike simplicity all the time. They do it without us even realizing it. From the very first shot, we're in another world, a 2D world, yet how often do we actually question it? Cocteau was very aware of the line between fantasy and reality. He treated everything with what he called a documentary style. It wasn't poetry for poetry's sake that puts you in danger of falling into phoniness. Instead, he treats everything the camera sees as fact. It was a deliberately anti-poetic style that, ironically, yielded poetic results. When Beauty's father enters the castle to escape from the storm, we get our first glimpse of the fairy tale reality we've been told to believe in. The walls are alive. There's a simplicity to the way Cocteau shoots the hall, dark, minimal, that stresses the dreamlike atmosphere he's created. He uses reverse motion, a simple camera trick, to make the candles look like they're lighting themselves. Later, when Beauty arrives to save her father, the same hall is shot in slow motion. We know this isn't real, but we believe it anyway. That's part of the reason why I love this movie and why I think it holds up till today. It takes its material seriously. The black and white archetypes of a beauty and a beast, of Prince Charming and evil sisters, they're played genuinely all the way through. Everything else complements that aesthetic. Costume, lighting, set design. Just look at the way the film introduces us to the beast. It's as if he's emerged straight from our imagination. Jean Marais, who plays both the beast and the lover, understands the tragedy of his character, a thing cursed by its inability to be loved. We can see the pain in his eyes. The makeup, done by Hagop Arakelian, is just as believable as his performance. Both shine through especially in some of the film's incredible close-ups. This might be the quintessential movie fairy tale. Its beauty remains just as impressive and enchanting as it was when it came out in 1946, and watching it today, it's easy to see how it cast a spell on so many Disney remakes. But, as is often the case, the story behind the film isn't nearly as glamorous as the story we see on screen. Cocteau kept a diary during production. He wrote everything from the terrible weather conditions to the accidents on set to his own personal fears and anxieties about the film. It was a rough shoot from the start. This was France in 1945. The country was barely recovering from the war, and financing motion pictures wasn't exactly a priority. Cameras were faulty, film labs unreliable, not to mention the electricity could shut off at any moment for hours at a time. Great conditions when you're trying to bring a story like this to life. Cocteau himself was seriously sick for almost the entire making of the film. Halfway through the 4-month shoot, he was hospitalized for pain in his face and neck. Him and some of the actors grew boils in strange places, and the stress and exhaustion of filmmaking didn't help. But they were resilient. In his own words, "The physical doesn't matter anymore. Artistic creation and its beauty must take its place. It would be criminal to make the film suffer from my suffering and ugliness. The movie screen is the true mirror reflecting the flesh and blood of my dreams. As for the rest, that doesn't matter anymore." Things never go according to plan. Either the sun doesn't cooperate, or a prop is forgotten, or a horse falls on an actress, but sometimes we're rewarded with little things. Details like the ears of the beast twitching, or the light reflected in his eyes, or the way he drinks from the lake. These are moments that will last forever, beyond the pain it took to get them. That's the beauty of cinema. One of the things that distinguishes artists in any medium is a distinct body of work. In that sense, Cocteau is an artist through and through. There's a reason he includes his signature in every one of his films. They're each an extension of himself. Maybe his least personal film, Beauty and the Beast, still has traces of that thing, whatever it may be, that he explored in his art until his death. Visuals such as the beast turning into the prince come back almost 15 years later in his last film, Testament of Orpheus, in which Cocteau himself rises from the dead. Mirrors are another obsession. They are a character's deepest desire, or they are portals into another world. More than anything, I think Cocteau enjoyed the fun of movie trickery. Playing with time itself. That's something only film can really do. It's not minimizing to say that an artist repeats himself if each repetition means something new. Techniques he discovered in his first film are reused through to his last. If anything, it's a sign of someone whose vision was there from the very beginning. People change, styles change with them, but it's interesting to watch Cocteau's films back to back and be able to see that line that connects them all. There is one thing that stuck out to me when I first saw Beauty and the Beast. It wasn't too long ago. Actually, it was in a theater in Brussels. I remember really falling in love with the imagery and how rich and real it was. Even the beast's pain felt like more than what I'd expected to feel. Something about the ending felt fake to me, though, like the movie itself didn't believe in it. There's an irony to it, this woman who falls in love with this monster, only for him to end up looking exactly like the man she'd been rejecting the whole time. In Cocteau's version, that man ends up turning into the beast as punishment for trying to steal his treasure. The two transformations happen simultaneously, so when Beauty and the prince fly away in each other's arms, I wonder who she's really flying away with. It's almost sinister, but based on how aware Cocteau was about how his work would be perceived, it seems intentional. Rewatching the movie, I was left with the same impression. Is it a happy ending, or something else, something more? I don't have the answer to that question, but that's part of the reason why we watch movies. To believe in this false reality, and then to walk away questioning both it and our own.